This segment of the Indigenous Languages Series was filmed in the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, situated on ancestral land on Treaty 1 territory. Robert Maytwayashing is Anishinaabe, raised in his people on the Lake Manitoba First Nation located in the Interlake Region of Manitoba. Robert is a pipe carrier, sweat lodge keeper, and attends the annual ceremony of Sundance. Robert has also hosted warrior lodges and eagle dances, to name a few. Over the years, Robert has served his Lake Manitoba First Nation community as both a council member and as a chief. Robert was also a health director in 2 First Nation communities and the senior health policy analyst for the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs.
Good evening, my relatives. My traditional name is Strong Standing Red Buffalo. I'm of the Bear Clan. My English name is Robert. My family name is Maytwayashing. I'm evidence that we as Indigenous people come in all shapes, sizes, and shades these days, okay? What I want to do for you now is I'm going to attempt to share a story, first off in the language, and it's always funnier in the language, and I'm going to do my best attempt of translating it, but more importantly, trying to translate some of the humor in that story into English is where the difficulty comes. So having said that, I'll start. Ham gaite me wako a kenziak babau nigiot. Nijeninjuk ki babau nigiok. Aganesh kogyon tendiok minik chigachitin orta mikun gemo ojashkun minige skit watchip mioniot mia kominik on tendiot. How me diskeget mizigo ki mountain ort minien minik wesial minik kaiden da watchika skizot chigetapiot. How me taswe basic Nochigo pagi tatese we no ini gans con kinis yok ko in yok o ini gans con o ichoganan hayogi nan ham igo sita men no monakshik I abustasoven I agemen ajage tepsemen o wek o esiak kanuchai kabegi sek chip mos saying ni shogun I go on tentemen chibota wish nang wote go on chiang chibo bita bang the shigamach aminige shep shemak the swega bustas on egi shitamen shigo migo ani bangish shemong wa bang unakshik I nghĩ tới cái má chi cái à cái tagush nó mình má basic ni cho cái gà nhà yat o cái gà nó xem một tàn mi mai yep mi samen Ketchna goi ga beshi gonan shigo boshke ma ga ta shame gonan geize segigo mitäs magiga kui sitä kusnan. Chibo macha, chiboi. Ian niga ultron. How mige get chibo bitavan. Kia webis wak kanise macha otwat. Metap yoko tapan akon. Miun yok minel. Oes sienagi katsetin oot. Mikä pegi seki musseok. Nuun teskatte okki kuge. Oetas kani ganis kootonun niis. Wenjega nuun attui joganan. Aiotnan. Aittagi nai nuun de mam koomenotnan. Patni nung kitagatse goche ashamigwang. Appi chigi gasage. Abegani kena sina pije puni wissen yan. Meeshaga chi ni gitamaage anis. Ispendas keget ashamigwang ima nunga kiise tagusnan. Aiga tuutun. Aname tuppuniga tukkepskun. Mi ejekenda van je puni wissen yan. Kitene entamna ugiga wetsemaan. Hangdene entamotegun. Migeget migo ne pangissemon. Kovatamot kos kamateos konek mi joutan ja utaja enoe kaiketades tui jogana ni magani ajalet. Mi meget kaiseta usloat. Pappagi jokkemata usloat skondem wenje baksek. Skinikwe manipue. Otop manon ni senen ni manipue nete jibi page matto vapain. Baba kitutsegu mani senen jogo mata usseno. Mä teen nuun taku siitä jotain on vähkensi, kun papain uskinikku joutit naan. Pintikas, a tuppuinen mä on taas. On a pemi mä tuppuinen, a shamseema tiiminä. Migeget, kaisi pintigot, kaisi on tapiotte mä a tuppuinen. Missä vassan se kasvak. Ui tupmi kuatsa kun jähkensi on kautta soot. Se uiniskinikku on. Mä pejaske nuun teskate okka vegisegas kipmusseok. Mä mi bejinak chiwisseni ot. Mä bejinak beting skamo vega gasiget ke gumijen. Poatsege wink paut bejimin oppesege. Bejinak beting skamo. Beting minoise skamot minisen iskamot. Kainda suikkeni maassion ogo niisenen joka kitagos nuota ajana kona oiskini kojo toonima puussessa nogan enemmän. Ampe sikkeni maa niin bussen ateset sen sai partniinangas kisegyös kakkeva buusses kaating. Mien tuu toote niin jonka kasikeen tuo buusses. Niin joon tankskak. Ineentam tässä oiga kaisikin, että minä siitä pysyy se puni wissen jään ineentam. Minä kette se puni wissen, että pitäisi käydä nuun teskate, ka vegi se kanssa kipmosse. Mikä et skois joko vekaanet. Minä se naattu teegu uiskin ikkue, kun sä sakkinaan ja tuppuin. Taas on enkä wissen niin kaiskos se ennen kuin tattuun. Oetas kakittaa ka nuun teskata eikä kasike toga nopmaan tettuun että uiskin ikkuen kiegu. Missä kun muuttes seoksego. Omat soninen akkensia niin mä kaijat. Kautes soot. Missä kun tikuan jakkensia niin mä chiikisko teen niissä kekmetsessä. Mä gene paiknoon. Jo siitä ei kuivaminen oikeisep, kogi seksep mosseek se votakusnek. Ja kuivagi ja motsetemen, mieget motset jok, sa senksen ogima. Mi wenchegi get toakkeen siimaa teventan. Mi sattevitsegek, puutatavok, jega uskonen seganes. Mieget ei se puutatavot. Skitepekkatsego. Poi uetas kagasegetas opiittuun. Chiguenkushenette no, opian chiguenkushenette aineenta. Akkuekka piak chiguenkushiot. Apinen da mana kena chikchine bot. Ngapasi wing and Antonic came at task when they would make command Micha. Amiga get to Pian. A Pinon daughter not Keynesian, but then gominate, she was so in Iskini when Major Pasiquit. Kashkiti be cut the snot, Chiguima being the kind of go over the scene and the cage at with the sang over so me can a task one. When Jamajan to Genie get the man with their task winning. Gay we mau me can of beach man, and not to go she magunde. There's a beans in the chin at the ma. Not to go shoot pound. Boy and jam, no one a meccan. But a wink pound, there's a march immediate. The scale with the knee jaw and gandash sama, capitic showing pagoto in the meason. Meason gay get any march at the my end in the wee jogging and in the planet. Yet the scar skitty be cock on the march eyes and him. I is in my question, or skinny que canepan, it is in my question. And them cushion on the seat again, a skinny when so not she go chang it down in the canepan. Meet a shimmy and a minute, and then the water stay on, ne, chat then, and the wee jogging and me may a season in seen it, me and jam, or just go wash come on. I understand none, gay, ye guys in seen it, the way skinny quill cheat, or cheat young. Boy, as you book it, take home, it to go skinny que. Not to win any reason. Oh, I mean, what's about that? I'm going to get a test, no, not none reason. More is a match come on at reason. And end a minute, ma. We join and not doing chat then. Boy, beach in a chin at the mason. Sealer and sing me up in cheese, said she go. Wah, in end amazing. Come to the gas, Mary Mutian. Where we sneed. Me I said towards him, which chant as a man. Chant where Passaga and Andaman where sealer and some man in chin. Gamanga kenche gas in end amazing. Reason get negachan is agam. Mizun ago chigi ma, mise isn't ma, babamos, the chas senin is Dana Antonio. She go, this Saiganis came a chiga, miss me, I midjone, me, my isn't babamos, said chas senin Antonio. Meet a showish kiddy queba being the cadibat, boy, a mataban show is not kind of go waking on my joke, see a win and domine. Reason is Asian gene it, or cheating, yeah, not chigo shall be in it. I need it to get coming is an of my isn't in it, and immediately home isn't in it. What, mention in Baba, Ganish, guy, get in it, and me, and met the bean it is one of my Saiganese season in it, the measures are going to gain much. Meet a show a yap didn't cheat, that much sealer and thing. Measure Gabriel Dege, Mism no abenabet, not to him, Mateos say Mac Chassin. I bet no by me, my went set kind of your massy. Measure she get me a pitch every get till they get your tick chassin in Jabasser and Anton. Me a sealer and son in she. I understand no, or me wish kiddique, Changi tech is a mamma, is he big in it so. A Peter's get you at Meji Biba, get these, and if can equal home, Baba. Ah, the mention the West, kind we don't go to meet the company. Ah, me, yes. Ah. Jack Cox, it get up. So, the story I shared is about two trappers that went off into the woods back in the day when our people used to do a lot of trapping and hunting. And they were usually gone till they caught as many furs as they could carry back home. So there was two individuals, and one of them was the older one, and he was kind of the leader of these two individuals. And so he decided that they had enough furs. They had all that they'd be able to carry back. So he told his younger friend, we'll pack tonight. and we'll leave early in the morning before the sun rises, and we'll head home. We've got all the furs that we can handle for now. And it's a 2-day journey of walking to get back home from where they came. So they agreed that that's what they would do. They would leave the very next morning before the sun rose. So the next morning they got ready, they got dressed, they had a little snack of whatever they had to eat, and they started on their way. And as they were going on their way, the leader of these two told his younger friend, we'll take this other trail today, and that'll take us to my other friend. He has a cabin about halfway of our journey, and we'll go there, we'll walk up to there. We should get there just as the sun is going down, and he'll put us up for the night. And if we get lucky, he might even feed us. So that was the plan. So they kept walking and walking. And just as the sun was coming down, they could start to see a little light through the trees. And I guess this was the light of that cabin that they were headed to. So this leader of these two individuals spoke to his younger partner and told him, oh, by the way, I've been meaning to tell you, you've embarrassed me quite a bit over the years. And I've always wanted to tell you this, but I think today I need to tell you. You know, oftentimes when we're invited into a home someplace and we're fed a meal, you never know when to quit eating. You're kind of a glutton. And that embarrasses me because a lot of times you end up eating our hosts out of everything they have to offer. And I don't want I don't want to experience that again when we go and arrive at my friend's place here. If it happens to be that they feed us, what I'm going to do to you is this. I'm going to kick you under the table when I think you've had enough to eat. Do you agree? So the younger guy, who's the glutton, said, yeah, we can do that, we'll do that. So they agreed. So they arrive at the little cabin in the woods, and they knocked at the door. The door opened, and this young woman answered the door. And then all of a sudden she yells back into the cabin. She says, Dad, we have company. There's 2 men here. And then you can hear the old man in the back of the cabin yell back to his daughter, tell them to come in, set places at the table, put them at the table, give them something to eat. So that's what they did. So now they're eating at the table, and the old man and his daughter sat down and they're having tea while the gentlemen eat. And they had been walking all day, so they're quite famished. And this one that really loves to eat, the glutton, gets a mouthful of whatever they're eating into his mouth. And he's really enjoying this food that he's having. And then he goes for a mouthful, and he's chewing on that. And while he's chewing that, unbeknownst to these two trappers that show up, I guess this young woman had a pet cat in the cabin with them. And I don't know how familiar you are with cats, but they have a tendency many times to rub themselves up against your leg. So I guess that's what this cat did to this guy that likes to eat. It rubs itself against his leg. And he took it as a sign that his friend is kicking him under the table, that he's got to quit eating. And he's hungry, but he quits eating. So his partner finishes his meal and so on, and the meal's kind of done. And then the old man tells his daughter, well, clean up the table, straighten it up, put the food away, and we'll visit for a bit. Because these guys have another day's walk tomorrow, and I'm sure they're going to want to have an early start. But we can visit for a bit. And then he also directs these 2 men to put their bed cots or rolls right in front of the fireplace, and that's where they could sleep for the night. So they all lay down, and they're all kind of still visiting as they lay down. And then I guess it's getting time that they should get some shut-eye. So the old man tells his daughter, blow out the lantern, and these guys will get some sleep. So she blows out the lantern, and there's still some of the embers of the fireplace going on, so there's a little bit of a light, but not much. It's pretty dark in that cabin. Anyway, this guy that's really hungry, the glutton, he's still very hungry. So he thinks to himself, well, I think I'll just wait for everybody to fall asleep here, and when I'm sure they're asleep, I seen where she put all the food. I think I'm gonna go and dig around, see if I could find something to eat. So he kind of waits, and sure enough, soon he starts to hear some of the snoring to start, so he figures they're in a deep enough sleep. He gets up quietly, and he sneaks over to the counters where he's seen this young woman putting stuff away. And he starts quietly digging around in the counter, but it's pretty dark and it's hard to see. Then he manages to find a sealer, and he kind of smells into the sealer. It smells pretty good, smells kind of sweet. And he dips some fingers in there and he tastes it. It's good, it's homemade jam. It's actually quite good. Then he figures, my friend would really enjoy some of this jam. So he figures he's going to go feed his friend some of this jam. So in the darkness of the cabin, he somehow gets turned around. So when he thinks he's heading back to where his friend is laying, he's actually going into the direction where this young girl is sleeping. And she's sleeping with her back towards him, and her butt's kind of sticking out a little bit. So he slowly sits down beside where he thinks his friend is, and then he hears all of a sudden, he tells his friend, I got something for you to eat here, to try. It's really good. Here, try it. And he starts looking for his friend's head. And then all of a sudden, this woman, I guess in her sleep, lets out a silent fart and kind of goes, pfft. So the guy says, no, you don't need to blow on it. It's not hot. You'll be okay. So he's starting thinking that's her head, right? So he starts feeding what he thinks is his friend's head. Meanwhile, I guess it's where this young woman's butt is hanging out, right? So as he's digging in there and he's feeding his friend, he's feeding himself, he's getting closer to the bottom of the jar, and his hand gets caught in the jar. Now he can't get it out. And he's thinking, uh-oh, I'm going to get caught stealing here. I got to do something. So he figures he's going to sneak outside and go and see if he can find a big rock someplace along the little creek that's running by the cabin. So he goes outside. There's kind of a moonlit night, and he's searching for this big rock. Meanwhile, back in the cabin, the young woman wakes up. Something doesn't feel right. What happened here? And she starts to feel around her bottom, and she feels something kind of wet and sticky. And she's thinking, oh my God, I pooed in bed. My dad's going to give me heck. I got to go outside and clean myself off before anybody finds out. So she too sneaks outside. And now she's kind of bent over by the little stream there, washing herself in her undies. Meanwhile, this guy's still roaming around the creek side looking for this rock. And the area that he just came from, he turns around, all of a sudden there's a rock that wasn't there earlier. And he figures maybe the clouds were covering the moonlight or something. Why he didn't notice it. So he goes running up to this rock, and as hard as he can, he smashes that sealer on the rock to break it off his hand, which is this young woman's butt up in the air, right? And he scares the hell out of this young woman to the point where she yells out, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm sorry, I'll never poop in bed again. That's the end of the story. And the term that I use, jekakse, it's a term we use to describe somebody going head over heels. But in the instance of storytelling, the term is used, jekakse, like I just took a bow. Miigwech.